Hello everyone and welcome back to Closet Gaming. Today we are going to take a look at Conan Exiles Early Access. This open world survival RPG is set in Robert E. Howard's universe of Conan the Barbarian. You will get to strive for survival utilizing every single tool at your disposal, build your own settlements, find the secrets of ancient civilizations and their gods, and battle against an innumerable number of enemies in this dark world. You can get this game on Steam for €29.99. But remember, this is only early access. So let's start by talking about the mechanics of the game, because there really is a pretty large number of them to talk about. You start the game by creating your character, and you really do have a really large degree of control over how you want your character to look like. As this universe only houses humans as its main protagonist, you obviously don't get a choice to play as something as extravagant as the Khajiits in the Elder Scrolls universe, but not even the most basic elves or dwarves. But still, the customization options are plentiful, and if you know what you're getting into, you certainly won't be disappointed in this department at all. Most of your time in the beginning you will be just struggling to keep yourself alive, using every tool and resource you will be able to get your hands on. You start the game without a single piece of equipment except for a pouch for water, but even that is empty in the beginning of the game. So you will be gathering grass, wood, rocks, and everything you need to create everything you need to survive and improve yourself in this rough world. The gathering is divided into two basic categories: items you can gather by hand, and items you have to gather using a tool such as an axe for gathering wood from trees, or a pick for stone out of rocks that are just too big to gather by hand. This then directly ties into crafting, which is again divided into two categories very similar to the gathering categories. Items you can craft without using any special tools, and items you need to have some sort of device to help you craft them. Of course, only the most basic items can be actually crafted without using any. Once you pass to tier 2 items, you need these tools. And still sort of crafting, but I think this is a category of its own. It's building of shelters. In this game you can create wonderful buildings, from the most basic shacks up to the most amazing almost castles. And if you're playing on a public server with a working community, or with a group of friends you know aren't jerks on a private small server, you can even build essentially whole villages, with time even whole cities. Last, but certainly not least, there is the combat, as this still is a game set in one of the most brutal of universes. With the weapons you create you will murder everything from sweet little cutesy bunnies, through hordes of humans, up to the most monstrous of enemies. But the combat itself isn't really complex to be. Mostly it's just swinging your weapon and dodging while managing your stamina at a reasonable level so you can always dodge. There really are a lot of more mechanics in the game, but these are the very basic ones you will be spending most of your time doing. The other ones are essentially the cherry on the top, while these are the meat of the game. Before we move on to the other parts of the game other than its gameplay, we should touch on the multiplayer part of the game. There are currently quite a lot of public servers available, and you can quite easily create a server through the game's menus. And at the moment, there are quite a lot of balance issues, especially when you're on a PvP server, as most user-created buildings can be taken down very easily using even the most basic of equipment. But this will likely get fixed in the near future, making structures way more durable than they are at the moment. What I enjoyed probably the most was playing with a small group of friends, where I knew nobody would go around screwing each other without reason, and we focused on building a nice village in one of our runs. But I can also quite easily imagine that playing as two groups of similar sizes could be quite interesting, both of the groups trying to take over the game world. For the most part, I really enjoyed all of these mechanics. I would appreciate a slightly higher amount of stuff you can carry, so you don't run into situations where you have to run to your shelter with a chest just to store items, so you can go and gather more of them so you can build something you need to progress further. But I also understand that this is most likely a deliberate decision on the part of the developer. The second thing I would like to see slightly improved is the combat, where at least a few variants of attacks would go a long way. Just the regular power attack and sideways attack would most likely be enough, when you consider you already have a limited amount of stamina and dodging does use quite a significant portion of it. But altogether, the gameplay is smooth, engaging, and you always have something to do. That itself is quite an achievement and should be commended. When it comes to the story of the game, you only get a shell of a story, as you should in a survival game. You are a caught criminal, taken to the wastelands and put on a cross and left to die. But fate intervenes and you're released by a followed exiled, and from there you make up your own story. And there are quite a few ways you can take this story, whether you want to be a ruthless barbarian overlord, killing everyone standing in his way, or perhaps you will be a loner, living off the wilds and interacting with society only when you don't have any other choice. It's all up to you. The graphical fidelity of the game is more than commendable. When talking about open world survival games, it certainly is among the best looking ones, if not the best. The game is created using the Unreal 4 engine and it does use it quite well. I especially love the light effects, as when night comes, the world gets very dark very quickly, forcing you to carry a torch or quickly seek shelter unless you want to die horribly to unseen enemies. But even the rest of the game looks good. The textures are nice, grass moves with the wind, and enemies' animations are nice and smooth. But it's also not without any issues. There are still some graphical bugs in the game, as occasionally things will be clipping through each other, and the way the largest rocks crumble when mined is just plain hilarious and a bit immersion breaking, especially if compared how the trees fall down, because that actually fits very well. Perhaps the larger rocks should first crumble into smaller rocks to be mined, and thus this issue could be completely avoided without that much of a hustle. But all in all, the game is gorgeous, and if you ever wanted to be inside the Conan universe, this is probably the one that looks most like it. And surprisingly, the game even ran pretty smooth for me, being at around 60 FPS almost all of the time during my gameplay. There were a few moments where the game dropped its frame rate considerably, and even froze on occasion, mostly when loading textures it didn't have to use beforehand, and also whenever I first entered water during one of my play sessions. Other than the occasional freeze or lag, there is a quite large number of weird animation bugs, where NPCs don't animate properly, and sometimes just teleport over short distances instead of moving naturally. On the other hand, I haven't encountered a single crash, and that was really surprising to me, considering how early I got into the early access. So, in conclusion, I'm quite pleasantly surprised, as most survival games I picked up were totally boring to me. I never really stuck with any of them. I will likely launch Conan Exiles from time to time, mostly when I have a planned sessions with my friends. The graphics are amazing for this genre, the gameplay is fun, and the game allows for some truly spectacular battles in multiplayer mode, while still providing that fun experience in single player mode. If you're a fan of either the survival or open world RPG genre, or just a big fan of the Conan universe, this certainly is a game you should pick up. But even if you aren't one of these, you should consider trying out this game, as it's really quite a good game. So that was Conan Exiles, available on Steam for €29.99 or your regional equivalent. Well, that's it for today guys. Hope you liked the review, and if you did, please consider liking it, subscribing to my channel for more gaming reviews, or just leaving a comment if you have something you would like to add. And if you didn't like the video, well, dislike it. See you all next time with more gaming content.